Today we're going to cover Chapter 9, where we're going to talk about the theory of evolution. Now, first starting us off with the theory of evolution is going to be Alfred Russel Wallace. He was born in 1823 in Wales and is going to die in 1913 in England. His family had financial woes, which resulted in a move to England and eventually a withdrawal from grammar school. While traveling around England as a teen, he's going to become a practicing land surveyor. And as he does this, he becomes interested in natural history. He's going to launch a 4-year expedition to South America in 1848. But upon his return to England, the boat caught fire and sank. And so it's going to sink with most of his specimens and his research that he collected while he was on that expedition. He explored Malay Archipelago for 8 years, collecting specimens and identified transitional fauna boundaries between Australia and Asia. And this was going to be referred to as the Wallace Line. So if we're talking about flora, we're talking about plants. If we're talking about fauna, we're talking about animals. So these faunal boundaries are going to be the boundaries of animals between Australia and Asia. He articulated his ideas about evolution and natural selection and is going to send his essays to Charles Darwin in 1858. He returned to England in 1862 and continued his correspondence with Darwin, publishing and giving lectures about evolution and natural selection. He ends up winning multiple awards, including the Royal Medal in 1868, the Darwin Medal in 1890, and the Copley Medal in 1908. So pre-Darwin science. We're going to have many early theological beliefs that are going to include the idea that species were special creations that remain fixed over time and do not go extinct. They're going to be influenced by the teachings of Greek philosophers such as Aristotle and based off books like Genesis. Archbishop James Ussher is going to have a publication of his analysis of the Old Testament in 1654, and that's going to suggest that species creation occurred in about 4004 BC, making Earth right around 6,000 years old. Despite the discovery of fossils in the 6th century, many believe them to be species that did not survive the biblical flood or rock shapes that were shaped by nature. Connections between fossils and resemblance to modern-day organisms began in the mid-1700s, and this pattern is going to become more prevalent in the 18th and 19th century as fossils of extinct organisms are going to be uncovered. This is going to spark conflict between theology and science. As more patterns became apparent in the fossil record, the theological beliefs that had remained steadfast for thousands of years are going to come under scrutiny by George Louis Leclerc, James Hutton, George Cuvier, Erasmus Darwin, Jean-Baptiste Lamarck, and Charles Lyell. So we're going to go into each one of these scientists and each one of these people and discuss their thoughts, their beliefs, and what came of those. So first, we have Georges Louis Leclerc, the Comte de Buffon. He's going to suggest the idea of descent with modification. This is going to claim it was influenced by the environment and migration or struggle for existence. It proposed that Earth was about 75 years old as he compared different morphological differences between species, and although he believed in fixity of species and of special creation of these species. Next, we're going to go to James Hutton. He's going to establish the science of geology and propose that the formation of Earth's geological features occurred as a result of slow, gradual, and continuous forces. This is going to lay the foundation for the theory of uniformitarianism. Next, we have Georges Cuvier. He's going to expand animal classification through comparative anatomy and fossils, and he's going to believe that the remains of specially created species that went extinct due to catastrophic events. He proposes the theory of catastrophism. This idea that geological changes and unique patterns of fossils found within the Earth's rock layers is going to be produced by cataclysmic events such as volcanoes and floods. Next, we have Erasmus Darwin. He's going to be one of the first scientists to suggest descent from common ancestors. He uses observations of comparative anatomy and embryology and promoted the idea of sexual selection and described nature's struggle for existence. Jean-Baptiste Lamarck. He's going to propose a mechanism of species change outlining two laws, the use and disuse law, and he's going to have the inheritance of acquired characteristics law. Use and disuse law is going to state that extensive use of body parts would increase survival, while another part not used, would deteriorate or become non-functional. Inheritance of acquired characteristics law is going to state that traits making an organism better adapted to its environment would be passed to its offspring. Charles Lyell is going to renew the idea of Earth's geological features that were formed uniformly through slow, gradual, and continuous forces over the course of many millions of years, an idea known as the theory of uniformitarianism. Next, we come to the one that most of us know, Charles Darwin. So we're going to discuss different points of Darwin's life. First, we're going to talk about him as the man. He was born in 1809 in Shrewsbury, England. He was the son and grandson of physicians. However, he found school uninteresting and medical school was distressing. He attended divinity school at Christ's College to study theology, but found biology and geology courses and field work more intriguing. He graduates from Christ's College with his theology degree in 1831. The voyage. So, upon graduating from Christ's College with his theology degree, Darwin joined a crew on the HMS Beagle as a naturalist. This is going to be a 5-year voyage of the Beagle, and it includes stops along South American coast, where Darwin's going to collect fossils from coasts and mountains. He's going to take note of all the fossils that closely resemble modern-day organisms, while also witnessing geological uplifting occurrences that are going to be along the Chilean coast following an earthquake. He's going to stop along the Galapagos Islands. That's going to be a group of volcanic islands off the coast of South America. He observed a diversity of species, most notably the tortoises and the finches, in addition to collecting various different plants and animal species and fossils, and taking detailed notes on the island's geological formations. He's going to stop in the Galapagos Islands, and his stop in the Galapagos Islands is going to lay the foundation for his theory of evolution. So the most famous account of this voyage is going to be entitled The Voyage of the Beagle. And you can see that voyage here as where it's going to actually take off. It's going to leave Plymouth. It's going to come down. It's going to hit the coast of South America at Bahia. From there, it is going to travel down around the bottom of South America, back up on the west side. It hits the Galapagos, and then it goes across the Pacific Ocean. Then it comes in, and it's going to hit Australia. It comes up, it's going to hit Cape Town, and then it's going to make its way back to Plymouth. So Charles Darwin, the theory. Darwin's collection of Galapagos finches are going to be identified shortly after his return to England by John Galt, who concluded that Darwin had collected 13 different finch species with unique beaks specific to particular food, whose features were similar to species found on the mainland of South Africa. Darwin speculated that the difference in finch species are going to be descendants from the South American species, which diverged after flying to or being blown to the islands. The closest living species related to the Galapagos finches is going to be a dull-colored grassquit. After reading Thomas Malthus' essay on principles of population, which is going to describe the effects of limited resources would have a human population growth, such as death, disease, and famine, Darwin's going to apply this idea to animals and plants, including the Galapagos finches. Darwin suspected the divergence of the different finch species of the Galapagos Islands is going to result when a population from South American mainland species outgrew its resources and availability. So Darwin believed that the lack of resources is going to lead many finches to die, but those that survived are going to inherit modifications in their beak structures and enable them to eat other types of foods, thereby enhancing their survival and increasing reproductive rates. Darwin called this mechanism by which an adaptation enhances an organism's survival, leading to higher reproductive rates, natural selection, and an idea that he compared to the practice of artificial selection. Artificial selection is going to be the process by which humans breed specific species for specific traits. Darwin spent the next 20 years from 1839 to 1859 known as the Darwin delay, focusing on other projects in addition to collecting more facts, observing, and compiling notes on natural selection from a much larger project. Some scholars believe that Darwin avoided publication because of his fear stemming from upsetting those with strong religious convictions, especially those like his wife, fear of tainting his reputation, or fear of receiving negative reactions and disapproval from his closest scientific colleagues. Other scholars believe that Darwin kept his hypothesis a secret during the delay because Darwin viewed his ideas as a social crime, and he would be seen as a traitor among his contemporaries. Contrary to this idea, Darwin did not maintain his hypothesis a secret, sharing his ideas with friends and family. No evidence exists within any of his writings that he avoided publishing because of these reasons. Darwin wrote out his thoughts about natural selection in two short pieces: the sketch of 1842 and the essay of 1844, prior to beginning exclusive work on what he called his species theory in 1858. So contrary to these ideas, there's no evidence, they said, that comes from any of these existences. So coming down, we have Alfred Russel again. So Alfred Russel Wallace is going to be, remember, he looked at his own different ideas. He did his own travels. He collected his own species. So Darwin's going to receive an essay from Alfred Russel Wallace in 1858, and he's going to be asked to review the sketch and pass it along to Charles Lyell, which Darwin agreed to do. Upon reading the essay, Darwin realized it was a comprehensive sketch of his own species theory. Lyell, along with Joseph D. Hooker, presented Darwin's essay of 1844 and Wallace's essay to the Linnean Society of London, but were met with disinterest. Darwin's going to publish his species theory in 1859 under the title On the Origin of Species. The 14 chapters on the origin of species describes and provides arguments and observations for the proposal of natural selection and the ideas known as descent with modification. It also tells about how some animals and some organisms all will relate back to common ancestors. Darwin published 6 revived editions on the origin of species, using the term survival of the fittest for the first time in the 5th edition in 1869. Although On the Origin of Species has continually promoted favorable scientific and social discussion about the natural selection and species change since the first publication, its acceptance has also been countered by opposition from individuals with staunch religious beliefs. Despite the opposition, many years of experimentation and observation have made the theory of evolution by means of natural selection one of science's most important contributions. And so this is what the books look like. I actually have one of these books. I don't have the first edition, but I do have one that was from the 1860s, and it is very interesting. So this is a very important book, and this is what started it all off. I'll see you back for our last section in Biology 101.